Thank you everyone for being here today. I appreciate it. It's good to see a lot of friendly faces out there. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is an exciting day. I hope you agree. Ready to get okay. So here's how this started for me. A few weeks ago, I woke up to a text message from one of my children in the middle of the night. Mom, the UN climate report seems really scary, and it feels like nothing significant is going to happen to stop what's coming at all. I'm really scared. Is this the apocalypse? The recent United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report made it clear that we are reaching an irreversible tipping point for planet Earth. Inaction on the climate emergency, and let's be clear, it is an emergency, will lead to drastic changes in ecosystems with devastating effects for all life around the world. This report should be one of the most powerful wake-up calls we have ever received. The UN Secretary General declared the report a code red for humanity. And it's time for us all to take a pause in our own lives and ask ourselves, what more can we do to be part of the solution to this defining issue of our time? Climate change is rapidly spreading and intensifying, and yet there remains something that we can do about it. And it's up to us. It's up to you. It's up to me. And so when I got that text in the middle of the night, it was a wake-up call that I, too, needed to hear, and I realized that I must do more to act on climate. As most of you know, I came into politics out of a deep concern for our children's future on an ever-warming planet. And I'm so proud of all of the great work that we have done as a city on this and other interrelated issues. We joined Central Coast Community Energy, set the most ambitious carbon neutrality goal of any city in the United States, and made other leadership commitments on climate. And we did all of this within the framework of inclusivity and equity and fiscal responsibility. And I'm grateful to be leaving the city in the very capable hands of the great women on this council, the exemplary staff, and the many, many climate champions in this community, much of whom are here today. In the last 5 years since I've been mayor, we have also made progress on housing, bike safety and accessibility, and for the first time in our history, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a major city goal. And we achieved all of this while remaining fiscally responsible and getting through a historic pandemic like a champ. In partnership with the community, the City Council, and our amazing staff, in partnership with them, I have accomplished so much of what I came to do here in San Luis Obispo. And now it is time for me to step up into a new role, one where I can help create systemic shifts to ensure a safe and vibrant children for our future and to amplify California's climate leadership. The great state of California can and must inspire the country and then the world to make more ambitious climate actions on the climate crisis. And I'm moving on from my role as your mayor for the same reason that I entered into it. My children and their generation need me. They need us all to step up. And that is why I am taking on a new role in which I can have even more impact. And so today, I am excited to announce my transition to a state-level climate advocacy position as the Senior Public Affairs Director at the Romero Institute's Let's Green California program. Yes, thank you. Let's be clear. I'm stepping down to step up. This moment demands that we do everything in our power to address the climate emergency. And in my new role, I'll have the opportunity to work with elected officials, community leaders, environmental organizations, policy professionals, and people like all of you across the state to ensure that California embraces its ability to make real change happen right now while we still have time. And I'm grateful to our council, community, and our staff for being climate leaders who have done so much on this issue that I can step up and amplify this type of climate leadership at the state level. A state level movement is crucial because while individual actions are useful, we know that it will take systemic and cultural shifts to ensure a bright future for all of us. And as longtime climate champion Bill McKibben reminds us, the best thing that we can do as an individual is to stop acting and thinking like individuals. So thank you so much to the voters for believing in me time and again. And thank you to all of you who worked on my campaigns. And honestly, thank you to those of you that worked against me in my campaigns, because you made me and our policies stronger and better. Thank you to my fellow council members for being part of such a positive, civil, and successful team, and a historic all-female city council. Special and heartfelt thanks to the talented and dedicated staff of this great city. I want to say how much I appreciate our city manager, our city attorney, and our sustainability manager, to name a few. So Derek, Christine, and Chris, thank you so much for being exemplary at what you do. I thought I was going to get choked up about my kids, but I'm actually more choked up about the staff. That's how great this city is. That's how great this staff is. So thank you for all that you do. Yeah. And I hope and trust that future councils will continue to support the staff who have dedicated their lives to bringing our community's dreams to life. I recognize that this decision is unexpected and unusual, but these are not usual times. The pandemic has reminded us that time as an unlimited resource is an illusion, and our rapidly changing climate is making it clear every single day with historic wildfires, floods, droughts, and extreme storms that we are running out of time. And part of the new normal is that many of us are looking at our lives and asking ourselves if we are in the right place. Are we doing enough to create a more sustainable and beautiful world? This fight can be the North Star for all of us. It's the biggest story of our lives and the biggest drama in the history of the human experience. It's a mandate that we should feel and embrace to be part of the first generation to fully understand our potential extinction. Right? To be part of the first generation to fully understand our potential extinction, and the last generation to be able to do anything about it. So it's time to write a new story for humanity, and I'm grateful to be one of the many authors of that new story, and I'm calling all of you up to join me in co-authoring that vision. It's easy to despair in these historically challenging times, but I'm here to tell you that action is a powerful antidote to that despair. We have an opportunity to take action, the action that this moment requires. Because there is a glimmer of hope in the climate report. The analysis shows that human beings can limit warming and stabilize the climate by mid-century. So we must work together to demand that governments, corporations, and communities make immediate, rapid, and widespread cuts in emissions, all achievable if we can generate the political will. And that's why one of my first tasks in my new role will be asking Governor Newsom to declare an official state of climate emergency in California. By mid-century, my children will be the same age that I am now, and potentially with kids of their own. And I want to brighten their glimmer of hope, and I pray that all of you do too. A few days ago, when I spoke to my kid about this decision to move on from the city and up into a more meaningful climate position, they said that sentence that all mothers long to hear. I'm so proud of you, Mom. I'm so proud of you, Mom. So, as a final act of service to you, the people of our city, I give you this to consider. Simply, I hope that you will join me in pausing your own life. Pause your own life. Consider that. And reflect on how we can live and how we can collaborate. And yes, how we might be able to change the world. Let's all ask what's at stake. Let's ask who and what do we love most. And let's ask ourselves what more we can do to ensure that all of our children have a safe planet to live on and a vital and thriving future. And let's ask ourselves what more we can do to ensure that all of our children are proud of us. So thank you. And so I'll be taking questions from journalists, and I'm happy to discuss anything rooted in facts.
A fact is that climate change has always been known to be a big, big issue with everybody. So why now? Why didn't you take that position before you took this position? And why now, before your term has expired, did you decide now? Is there another reason behind this that you're not saying?
I've been working on climate change, it feels like my whole life at this point, but certainly the last 2 decades, and have been able to do a lot. So thank you for noticing that. And started as an activist,
Mayor Harmon,
and
then
ran for office and have done a lot as a city in collaboration, as I said, with many of the people that are here today.
That's a fair question. Could you answer
Ma'am,
the
are you
question?
under investigation by the FDR? Are you going to be indicted, ma'am, for your affiliation with Helios
That's a fair
Day Spring?
question.
Or is this just a big coincidence?
I have no involvement whatsoever in any of that.
There's no truth to the
Any
report?
of what?
There's no truth to the reports? Could you answer that
Did you have a question?
What happens now? Who's going to fill the seat?
Yeah, great question. So I think you all got some details there, because it's a little bit, I know it's complicated, but there's some details that are in the city's charter that we have to follow. And so once I vacate my seat, which will be in approximately a month, that then the remaining council members will then appoint someone to take that position. My sense is that will likely come from one of the existing council members, but that's just a guess on my part. And if that's the case, then they will also have to appoint a second person to take that vacant council seat. Yeah.
And just to piggyback on some of the rumors that have been swirling around the Helios situation, you know, what is the extent of the campaign donations you've taken with him, if any?
Yeah, all of that is public, and everything's been reported in alignment with all laws and regulations around all of that. That's all been public for years. I think that was an election 3 or 4 years ago now. So, and as everybody knows, or maybe you don't know, happily, at the City of San Luis Obispo, we have a very small maximum donation of $300. And so no one can contribute more than $300. So I don't have all those numbers right off the top of my head, but it's all publicly available. It's all been reported, and everything has been reported within the laws and the PPC and all of that. Certainly with an investigation the size of which we've seen in our county, I think if there had been any problems, we would have heard about that.
So just to clarify, you're not under investigation?
No, I'm definitely not. I'm under interrogation constantly by folks, but not investigation.
So, piggyback on that, you know, instead of waiting till the very end, why did you choose now as the moment to step down?
Yeah, so there's some other issues too, right? So, like I said, climate action is my North Star, but that is just one point amongst a constellation of reasons. And so this role is compensated at a level that it makes it really impossible to live in the 5th most expensive place to live in the United States with just this role. We know that I'm certainly not the first council member to have to step down due to financial or trying to get jobs and careers in the context of our role. And that's definitely been true for me. It's been a challenge to get a role, and I have been trying. And so it became clear that I wasn't going to be able to pursue those opportunities while I was still in the context of this job. And so since this job came along that is in perfect alignment with my values and with what I feel I'm meant to be doing, and honestly, thanks so much to so many people here, staff, council, climate coalition, and community members. We have really done, you know, there's always more to do, but we've done so much on climate change that I do, and not to mention housing, bike paths, fiscal responsibility. Like I said, we got through COVID like a champ. The parklets, this city is doing great, and so I do feel like it feels like a good, a solid, grounded time to leave. The rest of the council is an amazing group of women. I think we just have a record level of civility, which is so important to have those really important conversations to get to the solutions that we need. And so things feel pretty grounded and strong and settled. So I didn't feel like I was leaving at a time where there was, where it didn't feel appropriate, I guess I would say, to do so.
Will you be based here in SLO with your job?
Yeah. Yes, I'll still be living in SLO. I'm doing a little bit of traveling, but mostly working remotely.
Mayor, may I ask a question? What about the future of Prado Homeless Center? Do you have any thoughts on if it's going the way the donors and the homeless people and everyone needed to go, or does it need more improvement? I was out there myself. It's a mixed bag. It's a very difficult situation.
Well,
housing
I think
people in crisis.
Prado it has been such a great resource, and as most of you know, it's fairly new, and so it's a new-ish resource, and it's done a lot of good work. COVID has made Prado more complex to navigate, and so I'm sure there's always more to do. I'm excited to see the detox center opening up right next to Prado. That was definitely a significant missing piece for folks. And so folks that are still struggling with drugs and alcohol will have a place to land to get the services that they need. And so I think all things considered, Prado is doing a great job. I'm sure there's always more.
The food is almost gourmet food.
Well, that's great to hear.
The volunteers that go there are so amazing.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you for sharing
that.
that.
Cook authentic ethnic food, and you name it, we ate it.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanksgiving was righteous. The big turkey meal was lunch. And then dinner was an
Well, and before I move on to another question, no, it's okay. We have a new community outreach program that we're going to be doing to engage with folks that are at this point not in the shelter. They're self-selecting out for a variety of reasons not to be in the shelter, and that'll have a social worker and an EMT, and so we'll be doing that also. And I know that we talked about wanting to make sure that we had someone that either is currently or at least formally unsheltered, to be part of maybe those conversations, making sure we're getting that right. And if I'm understanding you correctly, you might be in that category is what I'm hearing you say.
Nicely housed now.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. Okay. But there might be an opportunity there.
I was like literally on the street, but that's
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm glad that things are moving up for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I had a lot of help.
I'm so glad to hear that.
French ER kind of saved my life.
That's wonderful.
So along the lines of some things that might still be lingering issues. I know you came in wanting to tackle housing affordability, wanting to tackle diversity. Is SLO in a better place than when you started with both housing affordability and diversity?
So data-based decision making is really important. So I wish I had a staff report. Really going to miss the staff reports to answer that really specifically and accurately, because I know we all believe that facts and accuracy are really important. But having said that, I think that we're on our way to tackling diversity, equity, and inclusion. Obviously, that is a 400-plus year challenge that this country is based on. So dismantling that, is going to take some time, right? And so I am proud that within the city organization itself, we have a diversity and equity team. We are doing all of our programs and projects through the dual lenses of climate and equity. And so we're looking at everything through those lenses and trying to do our best to make sure that the decisions we are making are taking those two things into account. And as always, especially, with any policy, but, the equity piece is new for us, and I'm sure that we have a lot to learn. So as always, though, there's always an opportunity for the community to keep engaged and share feedback if there's experiences that don't feel equitable. For example, it would be really useful to hear about those things so we can address those things. I don't think we yet have, looking for Derek, we are hiring a DEI coordinator? Manager. But we don't have that person yet? No. Okay. But that's also a brand new position. Just like our homeless services coordinator is a brand new position also. So thank you to all of you for voting for Measure G that has created a pot of money. Yeah, I know. It's great. It's great because, I don't know how many people recognize this, but the city of San Luis Obispo doesn't get one single penny for homelessness. The county gets all of that money. And it puts us in a really hard position to try and solve these problems. So thank you for voting for Measure G, so we do have a pot of money to try and take more meaningful action, especially on the homelessness piece, which I know is top of mind for so many people. But yeah, we have new positions also really trying to create a community of care, essentially, in every way. The housing piece, you probably know, Nick, I'm not sure everybody else here knows, but the city of SLO has more affordable housing units in the city limits than the entire county combined, and we keep getting more affordable units. And when I say affordable in that context, that is for deed restricted, low, very low, and moderately incomed folks. What frustrates people, the thing I hear the most about, are for working folks that don't qualify for those programs, but also don't really have the funding to afford to live here otherwise. That is a piece that I think we're still trying to figure out. So have we created housing affordability? That's going to be a hard question to answer, and it's also so relative. Is SLO ever going to be, is anyone going to move to SLO because it's affordable? I think that's a question that's probably not going to get answered in the way we would like it to anytime soon. But can we make it more affordable? I think we are, and that's what we're striving for. Yeah, go ahead.
Does
Anyone else have a question?
Yeah, if anyone else, Gentleman Kenny or whatever. It's, I know you came in as an activist, obviously your climate action initiatives were a big part of who you were before this. And you've been controversial as a mayor. What's it been like for you, just as, the target of criticism at times, the target of scrutiny? Again, we're hearing questions, about investigations and ties to cannabis, all that stuff. I know, obviously, you in particular have been a controversial mayor at times, and obviously maybe partly because of the activism background. What do you have to say in terms of serving as mayor and that side of it?
Well, it's interesting to be called controversial. And I think, people, especially women in positions of power that have a thought and express it, are therefore then often considered to be controversial. And frankly, I just reject that completely. And if that's considered controversial, then I'm proud to be part of, opening that door for other women and girls and everyone else, and any female identified folks or any other marginalized folks that often don't get to take up space. Also, I don't ask for permission, and I think that's really important. I feel like I'm very respectful and loving, and I know my worth and I know my value, and I don't need, and neither does anybody else, right? So it's not about me specifically, but my deep value and philosophy is that we, and especially women and girls who have been taught this for millennia, should not have to ask for permission to take up space. And the fact that I refuse to do that bothers some people.
You're looking fabulous today in your lovely roja suit.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I know I didn't know I was going to have a hype girl here.
I haven't heard you say anything
So,
about the poor women and their daughters in Afghanistan and how their rights have been ripped up. How do you feel about this, ma'am?
yeah, go ahead, Heather.
And reflecting on your time as mayor, what's one of the projects or things that you're most proud of accomplishing?
All the climate work is so great. And, having the day I realized we had the most ambitious carbon neutrality goal, which is a wordy thing in the United States, I just couldn't believe it. I just thought, oh my God, especially because it really does, when I got started, I didn't know what I was doing, right? Just like all of us, and I just kept trying anyway. I just kept figuring it out. And that to me is actually one of the gifts of climate crisis, maybe in particular for women or other folks that don't normally step up and step in. Because it's leaving a whole world of people with nothing left to lose except to step in and start figuring it out and not wait for that perfect moment or that perfect, a lot of times women will wait till they have an advanced degree or they'll wait till they're asked or invited. And so I'm really proud of that carbon neutrality goal. I'm proud of the bike paths as well. I'm disappointed. Yes. I'm disappointed that those projects became so controversial. I understand that change is hard, and in a community like this, it seems to be particularly hard for people to understand that the street belongs to the people, And so those conversations were hard for this community to have, but we had them and we got through them. And I feel like, just like climate, bikes, safety and access is a part of what it is to be San Luis Obispo now. And so I feel confident that even when I'm off council, that safe routes to schools and all of those things will continue forward and things like that. And not to mention the beautiful, downtown parklets program, which I think showed such a strong ability on the part of this whole community, but again, in particular, in this case, on the part of staff, to move at a pace that the emergency demanded in a way that really saved businesses, and not just saved businesses, but really saved a sense of culture and community in San Luis Obispo, and gave people hope and gave people a safe way to go outside and support, again, not just the businesses, but also be with each other. Often one of the challenges and the frustrations around government is that it's slow, right? Democracy is intentionally slow. And when it came to the pandemic, we were able to speed some of that up in a way that was really useful and saved people's businesses and saved, in some ways, the culture of this town. So that's another thing I'm proud of. Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yes, speaking more to the pandemic, I was just curious, as you do people, what do you hope to see from the city's residents, from everyone home, as we continue through this emergency?
Okay, I had a little bit of a hard time hearing you, but what am I hoping to see from the community around public health?
Yeah, and as we continue through this pandemic, that's still very high.
Yeah, of course. So I think in general, what I would love to see, and this goes beyond the pandemic, but this this story that is frankly a false story about rugged individualism in this country really needs to be called out and called up, and we really need to start shifting from period. It's never been true. And it's not true now. And I understand, especially those of us that are out west, we are the descendants of folks who believed in rugged individualism and believed in manifest destiny and all of those things and struck out on their own, etc. And so it's really embedded in our culture, and it's having toxic and at times deadly impacts on our communities. And you're seeing that in a lot of the conversations around the pandemic, whether it's masks or vaccines or going back to school or what have you. And so those have been really concerning and disappointing conversations to observe. And I understand that these are complex topics and people are afraid on so-called all sides. But I'm hopeful that we can get together, understand that this is a we, not a me situation, and do better on also... I don't know what to say about the fact that people don't seem to have lost the ability to understand basic science and reality. I honestly don't know what the solution is to that. But it would be nice if we could figure out a way to get more unified, which does not mean that we share the same perspective or point of view, but where we could come together across those differences. Again, we have so many challenges to face. If people think COVID was hard, again, I know I sound like a... is it monomaniacal? Is that the right word? On climate change. But if you think COVID was hard, wait till climate crisis really hits. Yep. And I'm not seeing us being prepared. And I just don't mean like the infrastructure of the city. I mean the infrastructure of our own hearts and the infrastructure of this community connection. And that's really concerning to me. So when we end up having floods or wildfires or climate migrants on the move and all of those things that we know are coming, I would like to see us grow closer together so that we can turn towards each other and not on each other when those moments hit.
With all due respect, you have received some heat for being a little bit more activist than mayor at times. How are you not proving those people right by stepping down as mayor midway to be an activist?
What I've always done is what I believe to be the right thing, and I am absolutely biased towards my own kids and their generation, and I feel great about it. I made a promise to my kids when I was 12 years old myself even though they weren't born yet. Let's not get that rumor started. That'll be the next one. That I wanted to be the best mom that I could. And I know it sounds silly or cliche or what have you, but that has been the organizing value of my entire life, which is why climate change, I think, impacts me and inspires me to get involved so much. Because I know that their lives and their whole generation's lives are going to be impacted and potentially shortened. And that's not okay with me. So I have always in the moment asked myself, what is the thing I can do in this moment as one person? What's the next biggest, best thing? Where are my strengths best suited? And like I said in my comments, I think a lot of us actually are taking a pause right now after this big wave of COVID and asking ourselves, am I living my best life? Is this really where I'm meant to be? And I have so loved having this opportunity to be the mayor for the last 5 years of the city of San Luis Obispo. And so few people get to say what I'm about to say. And that is with all of your collaboration, I did what I came here to do. I promised tiny homes. We put out the first legal tiny home permit in the state of California. You know, I promised bike paths. We have them. More housing, we're getting them. Climate action, number one. Diversity, first in our city's history. And so as I was reflecting, really feeling like, okay, I think I need to ramp this up at the state level because my kids' lives are depending on it. And it's not hyperbole to say that. I mean, I texted the city manager and our sustainability manager. I'm getting texts from my son, my kid, saying, Mom, are you hopeful? I don't feel hopeful. Are we all going to die? Is this the apocalypse? And I'm literally crying myself to sleep, thinking, because I don't know what to say to them. I don't know how to answer them anymore. I cannot tell them anymore, like I used to when they were little, it's going to be okay. Would not be in integrity for me to turn to my kid and look them in the eye and say it's going to be okay, because it's clear that it may not be okay. But what I can tell them, what I can look them in the eye and say, I will do everything in my power to make it as okay for you as I can. And so that's what I'm doing, and that's why I'm choosing to make this shift.
So in that, what are your immediate goals in your new role? What do you hope to push for immediately?
So a lot of organizations, and this one included, is focusing on encouraging or demanding the governor declare a climate state of emergency, which in that case is not just symbolic. It does give him extra powers. So that's one of the main things. But also other key pieces of legislation that we'll be working on across the state. Some much more significant climate legislation that hopefully the legislators up in Sacramento, especially those that continue to take fossil fuel money, we can encourage them to stop taking that money and start focusing on the future in serious ways. Because now, of course, we're not just talking about keeping it in the ground in terms of fossil fuels. We're talking about also having to be prepared with very significant resources to deal with what's coming. As this report said, I don't know if you caught that in my comments, but we are baked in for the next 30 years with climate impacts. So there's nothing really, it sounds like, we can do to keep that from happening. So now what we're talking about, like I said, when my kid is standing up at a podium when they're in their 50s, I want them to be talking about something else, hopefully, that we will have begun to solve this problem, and that emissions will be going down, and that the deadly, frankly, and economically devastating outcome of all of those things is starting to ramp down instead of continuing to ramp up. So it'll be focused on the governor, and then really key pieces of legislation going around the state and helping others in their own community engage with their own legislators and encourage them to take more substantive climate action.
Heidi, do you plan to run for any higher office in the future?
Yes, I just wanted to announce, no. I'll be running for president. Yeah, don't put a weird headline, Nick. Can you please? That's the thing I'm going to campaign for next. Accurate headlines in all the papers. Again, kind of what I was saying a minute ago, I'm always trying to figure out, like, where is the place for me to be, best place for me to be. And if at a future date that actually feels meaningful, I would do it. Like, I'm in it to win it here. You know, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that I'm doing the most. You know, so I've been in encampments in the middle of Texas with activists fighting the tar sands pipeline being built. And I've been in public office. So I've been in a lot of different spaces so I have a unique and pretty vast background in terms of the things that I've done. But every single one of those decisions has been an attempt, at least, to answer the question, like, what can I do as one person? What's the most I can do in this moment to make change? So I don't see that happening, to be honest. But if it ends up feeling like the right thing to do, I would consider it. But I have no plans to do that.
And I heard you. What's your stance on how police treat citizens who call in safety reports, and when they want wellness health checks? Last night I was arrested because I called in for my family. Okay? I called in for my family a wellness check for my 3-year-old niece, my 18-year-old niece, my brother, my sister. I live in Paso Robles, and I have been getting harassed for the last, well, my whole life actually, but you know, for the last like 3 years, and it's been nonstop. And Paso Robles did not come and help me. The police came and they patronized me, they gaslight me, they abused me, okay?
I'm really sorry to hear that happen.
I want to know your stance on that.
Well, as you're saying, that's the Paso Robles Police Department.
I'm talking about here last night.
So
I was arrested here last night when I called in. I was having a mental health crisis.
What would be really useful is to
and
get those
I was
details.
having a mental health crisis, ma'am. Would you like to hear my story or not?
I feel like I have the gist of your story.
Oh, you got the gist of it? Okay. Tell me how it is then.
What it would be useful is if you reported that to either...
I fucking did, bitch. I'm sorry to talk to you like that, but that's how I was treated last night. I was arrested when I called in a wellness offense. I don't want to talk to you.
Thank you all so much for being here.